cut Israel in half to build a little highway for them. That's a whole other thing with geography. I probably should have and could have included in this PowerPoint. That's a Palestinian consideration that I think it's completely within their bounds to ask for a concession on that. But how if you're Israel, do you go about that? That kind of thing.
I mean, I think it sounds good to do that. Like, they already have those two areas, but the problem is Israeli security is still Israeli security. So even though that they have the right to go from Gaza to the West Bank or vice versa, they're going to have extreme security issues going as they do now.
They do now, exactly.
So I don't think that there would have to be measures put in place to kind of avoid that. But then how would Israelis know that Palestinians going to the West Bank or going vice versa wouldn't try to be violent while going wherever? It's kind of hard to say, but then it's also like Israelis can go into the West Bank and be violent towards Palestinians.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, and I don't think it's something that is either never going to be fixed or something that really, really needs to be, like, everyone needs to put in effort, but you can't even ensure that would totally be a thing. So, yeah, like, you could make a highway, but then how would that actually happen? Because there's barely even roads in the South, So it's...
I just drove from a lot to Haifa, so I saw it all.
Yeah.
So we go with combos.
Yeah.
Going from, like, Beersheba to a lot takes 4.5 hours when it really should take, 2, So, I mean, they already have their, places and we can do that, but it's a potential dangerous situation for, like, entry and re-entry into both sides.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I think one thing we haven't talked about is Israelis push into the West Bank and settlements.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your opinion is on how that affects
I
the
think
situation, and does it antagonize Palestinians and risk the safety of Israel more?
I think it is any potential two-state solution completely impossible, because not only do you have these settlements, infrastructure connects these settlements. So actually, like, these little Palestinian, you don't have continuous Palestinian land in the West Bank. You have pockets of there's the Jewish settlement here, the Jewish settlement here, the road that connects the Jewish settlements, and then the Palestinians here. Between the two. So and then it makes, but there's some 800,000 Israelis in the West Bank. When they pulled out of Gaza, there were some 10,000 Israelis in the West Bank. 800 to 10,000. The entire Israeli army is 176,000 men. Like, how do you go about removing that? That's a huge, long process that you could definitely say Israel got themselves into.
So the fact of the matter is it irreversible. Maybe there isn't a pullback from settlements anymore, and so is there something forward from that we have to do completely different than a 67 line?
So I actually saw something from an Israeli think tank that I thought was really, really interesting, and they're called the Federation Movement, right? And what they call for a one-state solution. All Palestinians in the West Bank get full Israeli citizenship, and they want to turn Israel into a federal system like the United States, with a national government, and I think they want to split Israel, including the West Bank, into some 30 counties that have almost complete autonomy, right? The counties are split along ethnic lines, and they control their own education. The only thing the national government really controls is foreign policy and the military.
I see.
It's something
shaking
interesting.
his head.
Yeah, he's going like straight up.
There's no way that's possible. As we just talked to the lady yesterday, there's more Palestinian people than there are Jewish people.
It's about
There also is straight up separate but equal. That is segregation. Like,
no, it's full. It's complete. You can move across lines and live in whatever district you want.
But if it's split by no one's going to. So like if you live in the little Arab county, and then right next to you is a Haredi county, like no one's moving. Like maybe they can, but they're not going to. And what you end up with is the same like gerrymandered crap that we have, or you end up. It's like everybody argued that separate but equal and like school segregation and all that stuff was good and fine because it was equal. But like,
It wasn't.
what ends up happening is that someone in power who doesn't have intentions that are for equality makes it not equal, and then gets to hide behind, this is equal, don't worry about it, like, don't look too hard, it's totally equal and whatever, and then you end up with a vocal minority, right, like what they have now with these, like, the ultra orthodox who like are far outnumbered by secular Jews and Arab people getting to really control everything and do what they want.
Okay. Yeah.
Something you said though, just kind of, you said with the federalism that they would be in charge of their education. So maybe we're thinking about this the wrong way. We're thinking top-bottom solutions and not bottom-up. We all heard Yasmin talk about the education system, that they're not allowed to teach in some schools before 1948, that they just started teaching Arab schools about the Holocaust. So maybe that's where you start, in the education system, and then push to the national level.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that goes with what you asked me earlier about where does like trust building begin, and where is there a sight and end to this conflict. In my personal view, very, very personal, it's not anywhere close. The two sides are so far apart. There's no leaders on either side right now that really have the tenacity to take the risk for peace, because it's a big deal. It got Yitzhak being shot, So, in my view, it's pretty far away, and progress has pretty much been almost nixed, and it's almost like you have to start over. And maybe the bottom to top thing you're talking about, I think that makes a lot of sense. But it's not quick. No, it's not quick.
Because when you've been really, a foot on your neck and a fence around your family, and
It's hard to trust
and
the people
Jewish
who-
settlers coming into your land and throwing stones at you and then yelling at you about their land.
Mhm.
Like, how could you not? How could you not hate? How could you not hate?
Mhm.
And the only way to fix that is to start when kids are stop treating people like they're animals, and then even when you do stop treating people like they're animals, it takes a generation or two for people to believe that you don't think they're animals.
For sure.
And that goes both ways. Like,
100%. Mhm.
I think the things that we need to discuss, and actually in Israel we love to blame the media about a lot of things, and the media now love to show the bad things. These people hate this one, they show this on this one, and everything, but we don't know and we don't see, the media doesn't show us the small things like the Palestine who take Israel from the road and host it in their home, and it was amazing.
Mhm.
Or the opposites. There is Israeli like taking a Syrian that's injured in the civil war and take him to Israel and take care of them. And I think, as you say, from the bottom, there is a lot of actions that's really, really help. Unfortunately, also in Israel, we don't know more about it, because not the media and nothing show us this. So this is also a problem.
Yeah, like building on that, that's like a problem even in America, like what's going on now, and like not getting into that at all, but like propaganda and media plays a lot into how people view people and how people view conflicts and issues. And I think like a really good way to start, like I agree, is kind of, spreading the positives. Like I feel like there's probably so many people that have no idea that people in Rafah and Abu Ghash live together and work together and have a whole system, and they love living with each other. And I don't think people learn enough about that, not only in Israel
Coexistence
but
happens every
abroad.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
coexistence happens every day. And I think even when I was coming here, people were like, oh, like the conflict, and I'm like, there's like Palestinian and Israeli owned businesses, and they do what they do with each other. And I think that everyone always just focuses on the negatives. And I think like not only should we start in schooling systems to kind of educate kids about the positives and trying to mend the wounds that have been existing for so long between Israelis and Palestinians, but I think that also trying to spread more positives than negatives, because we only ever see the violence and hear about the violence, and like what we're doing now, kind of trying to talk about the positives is really important. Like if everybody did that, maybe it would make some sort of change.
Is anyone here from Haifa? Okay, then no one can confirm this one. Someone told me, who was here in Haifa, that like there's like projects in Haifa that they build neighborhoods specifically to put Jews and Arabs together in the same neighborhood. And I thought that kind of little steps like that are pretty great. Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling with this because it's one thing in Haifa where an Arab may have Israeli citizenship. It's a very different thing in Gaza.
For sure.
And it's not about the majority. It takes one person to do something stupid for trust to be destroyed.
For
So
sure.
positivity is great, but when you have laws that are unjust, when you have things that are not fair, it just takes one person from those communities to do something wrong.
Yeah,
And
so
I-
when
So a question for you. In 1995, we got a mayor, Nobel Sagavin. That means we need to not betrust all the national religions.
No, yes. I think that there's an element that people are not going to trust those people.
He's not
But
saying
same
you
thing
should,
is-
but he's saying that
Like,
human
what's that
nature,
for?
yeah.
and it
Like,
only
it
takes
happens.
one, like
like
for example,
we should forgive, but like it happened with Goldstein in Hebron, like you're not going to be happy about that. And then what the Israeli military did in reaction to people being angry is shut everything down. So it's like it takes one stupid action for trust to be destroyed. So you can go through years and years and years of education and be a great 10-year-old that is happy with everyone. And if your mother gets killed, the hate is gone like that. It's one action. And so I struggle with like, it depends, like what we talked about yesterday was there's different types of people that are living in different situations. And every situation needs to be remedied in some way, shape, or form. Like there's positivity in certain areas, but in other areas there is not.
Well, yeah, especially with Gaza. Gaza is a completely different situation.
One bomb from Gaza means every Israeli is going to go, there's mistrust for the Palestinians.
But I don't think it's about, people doing bad things and that causing issues and that causing hate. I think it's about just generally putting in more effort to spread positivity instead. Like, obviously bad things happen and people, one bad thing happens, somebody, like you said, somebody kills your mother and then you hate that group or whatever. That happens and it's always going to happen everywhere. But it doesn't mean that people as a whole should stop trying to spread positivity and try to come together as one. Like it's just like a general thing that should be done always instead of just promoting the negative and negative propaganda and stuff like that. I don't think it's about it's not necessarily about that. It's just positivity as a whole should just be a thing that's promoted more,
But
more so than the negative.
I see your cynicism because I'm the same way. I mean, this week was the anniversary of the shooting at Charlie Hebdo, and the one Malawi man saved so many Jews in the kosher market. He got citizenship. It was this great story. What does that change? People still consider France one of the most dangerous places in the world for Jews, and they have half the population of Arabs than Israel. So if you have the positive stories, who cares in the end? Who? And I mean the emphasis there on who, not to say like I don't care, but which of the Israelis will really be drawn by that and then drive action. So it's not spread positivity because there's a thing called toxic charity. You can throw around messages, you can post on your Facebook and Twitter. Great. What does that do?
Mm-hmm.
Give action. There needs to be people in the streets doing something.
If there's still new settlements coming up, positivity is great, but there's still new settlements coming up that's going to piss off people.
right, or someone in our smaller session last night said that she was disappointed with the experience yesterday because she felt like we were still, like, even talking to Palestinians, we were still given a pretty sugar-coated narrative of the situation because they live in Abu Ghosh and in Ain Rava, and it's like, it's kind of idyllic there in terms of like how it can be for a Palestinian Israeli, a Palestinian person living with Israeli citizenship, and their situation is very different from the situation that people in the West Bank and especially people in Gaza actually experience. And so like there might be levels of like I'm only a little bit oppressed, or I'm not really oppressed at all, but then we're not really, if we're just being like, here's an example of someone who is pretty happy and like has it pretty good, then we're like, I almost feel like we're whitewashing people who really, really don't have it okay.
You're right about what you said about the mistrust, and I think now we're at a point that the trust between the people are really low, really low. And you're right, you're really right about that. And as you said, what's your name? Lauren. As Lauren said, I really believe that everything starts with education and just enter in the perfect time. Like Itai got the project Kids for Peace. I believe that everything started with this, because if from young age they teach us to trust each other, like when I was in the army, I was involved in a terror attack. And after the terror attack, a lot of people asked me, so now you hate the Arabs? I said, no, why should I hate the Arabs? So 2 people shot me, so it means that all the Arabs are bad? No. So I think it's all begin in education, but you're right, it's now in this point where we're really in a low level of trust.
People
Like,
have,
if
I
I-
think
oh.
people have a little bit more, you're next, sorry.
That's okay.
like fortitude, Shelby and I have like a friend, Semyon, and I'll remember this, we were bringing him into Nazareth, which is like an area city, and he looked like, you know, he doesn't go into Nazareth, you know, he stays in Nofa Galil, but we were bringing him there to hang out, and we passed by a painting of of a suicide bomber who blew up a bus full of Jews, right, and it's just sitting on the wall there, right, and he is visibly upset by that, right, that is sitting there right in front of his eyes, right, and I think Shelby, you asked him, you asked him something along the like, do you want to go home, or does that make you? He goes, what? No, I hate that guy. I don't hate all of them. You know, like that kind. Like I don't blame everyone for one person's actions. Like that is what Samuel said. You know, and I remember thinking, you know, like that kind of thing. Like there's a little bit more fortitude. You're right in the that yes, I think one thing, especially right now, kills any semblance of trust. But from the ground up, I think that you start to chip away at that if kids from a very young age are brought together, know very well that not all Arabs are bad, not all Jews are bad, and it like I've said now quite a bit, it's not the fast solution to the conflict. It's not close.
Yeah, and yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
you.
Okay. I guess like I totally like see the value in like the bottoms up and like the Kids for Peace of the world and of this area, but like I just like personally struggle with like how you incentivize those type of programs when like, especially like it's been said like Israelis are comfortable or they're able, like you said, like to manage this like situation, and like those people that are putting their kids in those programs or that are like putting themselves in those like 4-month like rotational program we learned about yesterday, it's like in my interpretation of it is like they're already like willing to let go of some of the biases they have, or like they want to, like they're catering to a certain population, people that probably self-select into that. So how do you reach like everyone else? Like,
They'd make it mandatory in the schools, like Jewish and Arab schools have to do joint activities once a month or something like that.
In Israel, how do you do that in Gaza? How do you do that in the West Bank? How do you do that?
Maybe you start, maybe rather than go through the whole thing at once, start somewhere. You know, like as we learned about yesterday, Israeli Arabs here have cousins and family and everything, and hope there, and it's about where to start, because there's still a lot of like mistrust I know in Nazareth to their surrounding Jewish citizens and
I
whatnot.
don't think the Haredi are doing that either. They barely fight in the army. I don't think they're gonna want to meet with Arabs. They want to pray all the time.
Mhm.
Right?
That connection. A lot of my students after the assassination and the bombings were not upset with Israel at all. They said, "I'm angry at Gaza. They're throwing rockets into places where their own people live. They're making me unsafe, and it's Israel keeping me safe." And they have family in Gaza and family in the West Bank. So if we continue to raise their standard of living, it continues those thoughts.
So me and the other Rock kids, we visited the schools throughout, and the teacher that we were working with that day, and it was a religious school, her husband is the mayor there, and which was interesting. She's one of the greatest people I've ever met. So this was a couple weeks after the the issue we had in November with the Rockets, and I was talking to her. I was actually in the park on the zip line, because I just kind of got lost in my, inner child. And I asked her about the park, and she was like, yeah, like this Jewish organization in New York donated the money for the park and whatever. And she said like it really helps with the kids because they all have like anxiety problems and PTSD and all that. And she was saying how it's so messed up how the two sides, Gaza and Israel, can't come together, and she is just so for peace. And somebody who's been living there and has seen her students go through what they go through, and time again having to be in a bomb shelter, and her husband being the mayor there and being so involved in, politics and stuff. For somebody in that situation to be so for peace just gave me hope. Like, I was like, that is so, everybody should feel that way. No matter how bad things get and how bad you've been treated by somebody or how bad you have treated somebody else, like, it's that mindset that she has that is so inspirational. And I wish everybody felt the same way that she did, And it was just crazy to me because, like, I was even thinking, like, questioning myself, like, if I was in her position, would I feel the same way? Like, would I hate them? Would I not hate them? So I thought that was very interesting, and yeah. So
Something he said that I feel is one thing missing from the 2 days, which is obviously not a long time to conquer this subject to begin with, so it's by no fault of their own. But we are talking about money here. We're talking about geography, we're talking about politics about each other, but politics is money. So we haven't really delved into who gives money where. You're talking about a donation made by an American organization. Who hates whom based on who pays whom, maybe, is one other element we're not even able to dive into, and that could be the major quantifiable substance here that makes or breaks any of these choices and discussions we're having.
And it's really important to say it because there is a lot about this conflict that runs by money. Because for Israel, it's really convenience, for the Israeli government, it's really convenience to keep the war from not that. Because like this, we can test our weapon, and when we can test our weapons, a lot of country and organization out of the country look on us and said, they develop weapons, they try it, it's good, so we buy it for them, and we get a lot of money. Also for the Palestinians get a lot of money from Iran, and if they continue with what Iran tells them, so they get more and more money. So of course, the money, as I said, it's really important to talk about that.
How much of your annual budget goes to IDF again in Israel? It's like a huge portion as
It's
well.
like 18 billion or something, isn't it?
It's the second, I think, right? They got the second biggest budget in the government.
Yeah.
And also it's changed now in the last 5 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Until now it was the first.
Interesting.
And I got a question.
Just on the money discussion, these kids are spending most of their lives at school, and if a kid was able